there, welcome to Hollywood Breakthrough. I'm your host, Danielle Tillis. We have a special guest, a director, screenwriter, and editor, Chris Ask, here with us to talk about his film, The Retrieval. The Retrieval, a Civil War Western set in 1864, which is about a fatherless boy sent to retrieve a wanted man under false pretense, and the unexpected emotional bond that forms during their journey. The cast and director were invited to the SAG Foundation Conversation Series. Also, the film was awarded Grand Prize Jury at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. Let's start with a scene from the film, The Retrieval.
There's a lot of country between here and there. And to the north and south of either place. Now west. And if a man don't want to be found, there's many places he can go. Where you can go. Don't matter. If you don't bring this nigger back exactly how I say, I'll find you and put you in the ground, along with the boy and everybody else you ever knew.
Go. And now director Chris Ask from The Retrieval. Hey Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi Danielle, thanks for having me.
I'm real excited that you came on the show. The film was just amazing. And I just want to let you know how great that film was. If you can let everyone know in detail what inspired you to do The Retrieval.
Well, thank you. So this was several years ago. As we approached the 150th anniversary of the Civil War and of the Emancipation Proclamation, I was doing a lot of reading and hearing stories of all the hard work and all the sacrifice and all the tragedy that led up to that point in 1863 when slavery was officially abolished. And then I thought about what happened the
year after, and what about the 100 years after, sort of great period for African Americans in this country. How I feel like I rarely, if ever, see that portrayed on film. And so I was interested in that. A secondary reason for making this film and choosing the setting and these characters is that with all my films, I explore similar themes across them all. So as you can tell, I explore surrogate families, also the importance of reaching out and making connections in what I consider to be an increasingly isolating world. And most importantly for this film, probably the theme of the importance of reevaluating your path in life and seeing if what you're doing is really best for you and the people you care about, or if you're just sort of following what someone else told you should be doing, or just following societal norms. So for me, the chaos of war and the aftermath of slavery and these desolate, isolated locations, they all force the characters into this crucible where they have to reach out, make connections, form these new families, and hopefully reevaluate their path in life. So I kind of work at it in a different way than a lot of artists, but hopefully by showing characters that maybe in all my films, I made a Japanese language film and a Spanish language film, and this is a historical film. Even at the time or setting, the characters don't sound exactly like me on paper. The idea is that hopefully they're going through the exact same emotions and decisions in life that I'm going through. And by gaining a little bit of that distance, by not telling my exact circumstances and exact life story, hopefully I can find what's going to resonate with an audience. And, maybe hopefully or naively kind of show that cinema can sort of show the universality of the human experience and kind of highlight our similarities and our differences. Anyway, so that's a very long explanation of why I made this film. I have a history of working with non-actors, right? My last film, my lead actor is in his 50s. I just bumped into him on the street in San Antonio. He had a great pair of boots, this great head of hair. It just seemed like my patriarch. And I talked to him about the script, convinced him to drop out of society for a couple of months and come make this. He was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award, which is against Oscar winners. It's like the indie Oscars. It plays on TV the night before the Oscars. So I had that great success, and he became like a great friend of mine. So I wanted to do that again. So
now, have you always had an interest in history or the Civil War?
I am a bit of a history buff. I wouldn't go as far to call myself an amateur scholar or anything, but yeah, I've always had an interest. And you know, as a kid, my father would actually take me around to some of the Civil War battlefields and tell me the stories. And you know, we'd always read the historical markers on the side of the road, and I always wanted to see those markers, you know, brought to life with flesh and blood.
Oh, okay. So how did you do the research? Did you have to do a lot of intense research to get the story the way you wanted or get the story right?
Yeah, so there were a couple of different things that we did to research. And it's not just me, but my whole team. That involves my production design team, as well as my cast even. Even at the script stage, at the early script stage, we actually talked to some of the top Civil War sort of authorities in the country to let them read the script and give us any feedback for any type of inaccuracies or ideas. We even sat down with a panel of 3 professors here in Austin at the University of Texas and had them sort of go over it and explain what they thought should be changed, what they thought was particularly realistic or unrealistic. So that helped a lot. Then on top of that, my production design team and my costumers, they looked through all the photographs that are available. They showed me a lot of potential ideas for costumes. We also reached out to reenactor groups, and these are people who dress up like they're in the Army, and they live in the tents, and they sort of understand what life was like in the 1860s. They were able to advise us as well. And then I know that my lead actor, Tishuan Scott, did some reading as well, not just specifically of the Civil War era, but sort of the struggles throughout, even up to the early and mid part 20th century.
And he went to UCLA at the same time as I did, just for the last year, and I was already sort of 1 foot out the door. We didn't meet there, but he moved back to Texas, where his mother lives, and we met at an audition there. And so now we're fast friends going on the festival circuit. He's going to break out soon.
And Chris, how long did the film actually take you to do?
The film itself took about, I guess, 6 weeks to shoot, which is quite long for an independent film. We shot 5 days for 6 weeks, and you know, that's pretty long. Most indie films are about 24 days, 25 days, something like that. But it was so difficult out there in the woods, and with you know, we had animals, we had young actors, we had you know, weaponry, and sort of, they call them action sequences to some extent. And those things took a lot of time. Prior to that, the writing stage, you know, was off and on for several months. But when I actually sit down and write a script, it goes really quickly. I write the script from a very detailed treatment, and so that process can be done at 5 pages a day. And so I wrap that up in a couple of weeks. The post-production is what really takes a long time. And I'd say that we've spent probably at least a year in post-production, which is all the edit, the visual effects work, the sound mix, the color correction, all that type of stuff. So it's a long, slow road. And even after that, you get festivals for a year. So usually I find that independent films can be 3 years from the time you start pre-production until it's in the theaters. And that's pretty much what's going on with our current project.
Oh, okay. Now, you did mention something a while back ago here. Was it a little bit challenging to have a young actor or new actors doing this type of film with you? Was it a challenge at all?
Usually it is. And usually everyone will tell you, don't work with children, don't work with animals. Those are the 2 rules of film production. But in this case, Ashland Sanders is the actor you're talking about. And he just turned 15 when we shot. And he is an incredibly intelligent and mature person for his age, with a work ethic that stunned everyone on set. I'd say he might have been actually more mature than most of the 30 and 40-year-olds on the set. So that wasn't the problem. If anything, the problem is you can only work with minors, people under 18, for so many hours per day. So usually it's difficult because the kids can't remember their lines, and he had the entire script memorized weeks, maybe even months before we shot. He's a brilliant guy, and now he's actually gone off to college now. I think he just turned 18.
Let's listen to a scene from the film The Retrieval with the actors Ashton Sanders and Caston John.
A slave for the Union is still just a slave.
Like other men I've seen.
Yeah, he's worth more. And don't you forget.
What if it was you?
Well, it ain't. Look at me, boy. Look at me. You want to go back to selling tobacco for pennies? Nah. You could live hand to mouth for the rest of your life. Or you can make some money. Maybe even enough to find your daddy.
And if you're just joining our show, I'm Danielle Tillis, and you're listening to Hollywood Breakthrough. And we're discussing the film The Retrieval with the writer-director Chris Eska. You said you write a script pretty fast. Is there a fear when you first sit down? And when you started writing, do you shut yourself off from the world? Is there a process you do that you can share?
Yeah, well, by the time I'm actually writing the script, it's a very late stage in the game. Much more important to me is the preparation before you sit down in a chair to actually write the script, because I can't sit in front of a blank screen and just wait for inspiration. So what I do is I do lots of, it begins with an outline where I just, for probably months on end, I'll just jot down little notes, little tidbits of dialogue, ideas for scenes or costumes. And I'll find myself, if it's actually a script that I should write and that I'm going to be passionate about for a long time, I'll find myself waking up in the middle of the night, and I keep that little notepad next to my bed, and I keep turning the light on and jotting on and trying to go to sleep and waking back up and jotting something down. I'll do that for a couple of months, and then I'll make after the outline has been formed, then I'll make a treatment, which is sort of just a written prose version of a screenplay. It just sort of reads like a story with paragraphs. Just lays it out, and it can be anywhere between 1 page and 15 pages. So I write that treatment until it's so specific and so full of detail that it's starting to have bits of dialogue in it. And that's when I know that it's probably time to go ahead and write the script, because the story is there and it's fully formed. That's when I do that, where I sit down in a chair and just make myself write 5 pages a day. And that's actually a fairly painless, kind of fun part of the job, whereas it would have been terrible to sit down in front of a blank screen and just sort of, beat your head against the desk waiting for inspiration.
Right. A quick question about that, too. You indicated that you go a backwards route when you're picking a theme. Would you mind explaining that to us?
Yeah, well, the themes actually I choose very, very first. That's what's important. That's what I want to say. It's more the setting and the characters that I will sometimes back my way into, and it's sort of a multi-stage process. So one thing that I find is that it's good for me to take something that's very personal in my life, and instead of making that exact story, for example, of that summer that changed your life, when you're sitting there and you're remembering, what happened on that night when the blue car was there and the dress she was wearing and what the moonlight looked like, instead of trying to force your specific life event on an audience, I find that it's better to step back and try and find what it is about that actual story that's going to resonate with a wider audience. And then I try and find the characters and the settings most highlight those emotions that I'm trying to talk about, trying to discuss with the audience. And I find that really does give me that distance. And instead of sort of being wrapped up in my own little unique experience, I'm able to hopefully connect better with a wider audience and get them engaged in the things that are most important to me, which are not the details of my life, but the emotions in my life that I think we all go through.
Right. And just to dig into that a little bit further, so when you were thinking about this film, when you were doing this film, you did not have in your mind post-slavery film, but the idea of trials and conflicts of a person, or both?
Yeah, some of the main themes that and I did think about the specific time and place with the stories in the Civil War and of the Emancipation Proclamation earlier.
Right.
So that was sort of one idea that was in the back of my mind. I have many ideas going on at any one time, and the themes that I wanted to discuss are quite similar to the themes I've discussed in my previous films. And those mostly are the meaning of family and the idea of forming surrogate families. How sometimes the relationship can be more important than actual blood. And then also sort of finding a way to reach out and make connections in this sort of increasingly isolated world that we live in. And finally, for this film, probably most specifically for this film, is the need to sort of reevaluate your life and see if the path that you're on is really best for you and the people you care about, or if you're just sort of following societal norms or just sort of going along with what someone maybe a little bit older than you told you was the way to live your life. So I initially thought I would make this perhaps in India in the 1970s. I thought I would make this film on the Texas-Mexico border in contemporary times. And then I started to read about those stories I talked about earlier, and it made me realize that if I want to talk about these things that are so important to me and so dear to me, the aftermath of slavery, the chaos of war, all these isolated, desolate locations, they were all going to force my characters into this crucible where they have to dig deep inside and sort of make these big life decisions.
Right.
And this is sort of part of the reason that I chose this subject.
Right. And when you shot the film, was there any particular camera you used?
Yeah, we only used one type of camera. It was all shot on the Red, the Red 1. We used the Mysterium chip, and this was the top of the line camera for the money at the time that we shot, which now was coming up on about 3 years ago. So I try and do that every time, and I find that no matter all these new strides in technology and new progress, no matter what, we're always struggling, and we always kind of pay the same amount for the new technology because we always want to go with whatever's best at the time.
Okay. And once the film was completed, did you have any fear? Is there something you wish you had been taught beforehand?
I don't know that I have enough distance because I am still in it every day. So I think I'm still learning those lessons. I don't think I've become wise enough yet to reflect on that because I'm still living this film every day. But I certainly had fears. And when I finish all my films, when I finish the shoot of all my films, I usually think that the film is going to be terrible. I usually think that because I had to compromise every minute of every day for 6 weeks on the shoot, plus all the pre-production, and then if I have enough money for post-production and all this, I always think the film won't be very good, that it won't live up to my standards. And so that to me is the biggest obstacle. It just gets to the point where I finally make the first edit, the first rough cut, and then start to show it people. And usually when I see that reaction from people, it turns out that it wasn't as bad as I thought. And we've actually had quite a bit of success with the film, and I'm really, really proud of all the work that the actors and the crew did on the film. It just I think most directors are perfectionists, and they're very tough on themselves. And I need to learn how to mitigate that a little bit.
Wow! So you directed the film, you wrote it, and you did the editing of it.
I did, but there's so many people who helped. Like either gave me notes when I was writing it, or my producer Jason Wehling helps a lot when I edit. And then there's just all the crew members and everything like that. So it's not like it's a one-man band by any means.
So what's next with the film? You took it to South by Southwest. The goal is to get the film cross country, but what is coming up for you right now?
We're just kind of wrapping up. The South by Southwest, as you mentioned, was the beginning of our festival circuit, and we've been on that circuit for about 10 months. You can be on the film festival for about a year. And we played probably, I think, almost 40 festivals. We've won 17 awards now. And we are just about to begin our commercial theatrical release. And we're going to start as part of a pre-release in Atlanta, I believe in early March. And then we're going to open in New York City as sort of the beginning of our national release on April 2nd. That's at the Film Forum. And then after that, it will probably slowly platform out. It's going to be a limited release, but it should be in, hopefully between 15 and 30 March if things go well.
Oh, great. That will be fantastic. I know you have a Facebook account for The Retrieval. Definitely want everyone to go out there and like the Facebook of The Retrieval.
Yeah, please do. Facebook is very important to getting the word out.
And I just want to thank you for coming on Hollywood Breakthrough. And is there something you can leave us that someone in school or student or film student or a writer, some encouraging words that could help them with their process, such as a quote or something?
Maybe not a specific quote, but I think if I had any advice, it would be to just do not wait around for funding. Do not wait around for permission to make the film, to make your script. Just go out there and make the film that you can make and make it the best that you can. Because what we will never be able to do is compete with the money that Hollywood has, and Hollywood can't even compete with the money that commercials have for dollars spent per second, But what we can compete on is genuine emotion and telling stories and hopefully moving people and making them sort of think about their life and hopefully change the way that they think. So that would be probably what I would want to leave your audience with. Okay, great. And thank you again for coming on the show. And The Retrieval is a fantastic film, and you should be very, very proud of yourself. Thanks so much, Janie.